Raw dairy has been a controversial topic and been in the news a lot lately with the avian influenza and all that going on. So I wanted to get Mark McAfee back on the podcast to have a discussion on his way of viewing this, what we can do next, and how we bring it together to use raw dairy for health and prosperity. Mark, it's good to be visiting with you again, my friend. You have been in the trenches, so to speak, in the raw dairy world for a long time, and we've seen a whole lot of that lately in the news. A lot of opinions and just a lot of things being said, right? And so I wanted to get back with you and visit on your experience of that, and what are we needing to pay attention to as consumers and people just living and eating?
Well, suffice it to say, this is farmers over pharmacies time. Farmers over pharmacies time. Been doing this for 25 years, and for the first 15 years was largely ignored. But the last 8 to 10 years, especially post-COVID, people have started to wake up that the bioactive components found in raw milk, bioactives, alkaline phosphatase, all the bacteria, all the incredibly important functional proteins, their enzymes, just incredible. There's thousands of these bioactives that are killed in pasteurization or alive and well in raw milk, build the gut microbiome to be adaptive and resilient in the face of insults, viruses, bacteria, whatever it is. It builds your immune system. Well, I tell you something, that really pisses off the FDA because they are in bed with the big processors, and the big processors can't do raw milk. In fact, there's a study done in 2021, just 2-3 years ago, by the National Dairy Council, the National Dairy Council. They received money from the dairy industry processing to find out new stuff, right? Well, that study has 192 references. It's like 40 pages long. Talks about all the bioactives found in raw milk that they want to extract out of raw milk to make a new pill, potion, supplement, or product that they can patent and sell to you and me and make money because of anti-cancer properties, anti-tumor properties, ease of digestion properties, anti-allergy properties, immunosupport properties, anti-allergy, goes on and on and on. They want to take raw milk and they want to break it up into little pieces and sell it off as little supplements or pills or potions, instead of just drinking the real thing that's got it all there exactly as God made it over the last God knows how many hundreds of thousands of years to be the perfect first food of life to build an immune system that didn't exist before. So, like I said, farmers over pharmacies. We pissed off the FDA and they've taken notice. So this is just an indicator that we have become relevant.
So, Mark, what really got the renewed conversation going was visited with Susan Johnson, who is a pediatric cancer coach, right? And with her story, her personal, journey with that. I wanted her opinion, because I am extremely pro raw milk, but I wanted some clarity from her perspective with active cancer. Is something that she would recommend, not recommend? Because I'm still a little on the fence with active cancer. And so she said, well, Mark has been a friend of mine for years. My kids call him Papa Mark. And so I said, I gotta reach back out and talk to him because it's unbelievable how small of a world it is. Mm-hmm. And so when you came back with having the issues I knew we had to dive into it. So is raw milk being attacked across the board, the whole country, or you being one of the largest that there is being targeted, or what are your thoughts on who is being attacked?
Raw milk in general is being attacked. I'm being personally attacked at our brand. However, we made the conscious decision back in 2011, that's 13 years ago, to reach out through a nonprofit we created, rawmilkinstitute.org, with our board of directors and train farmers around the world not just the United States, but Canada, Mexico, South Africa, all over the world, New Zealand, Australia, everywhere. The principle is how to produce raw milk as a very low risk product. Because remember, the FDA doesn't have those standards. Their milk is all just dumped in one big tank, and they don't care what it is. It's all going to get cooked. It's going to get denatured, killed off. And they don't care about what comes in. Really, they don't. Their standards reflect it. You can put anything you want in there, basically, if it's not a toxic chemical, and you'd be fine, because biological activity of very high bacteria counts, they don't care. Pathogens, they don't care. Active or inactive bioactives, they don't care, because it's all going to get cooked and destroyed anyway. So that's the FDA. That's their mindset. That's their heart set of just kill it all and make it safe. Well, our consumers are saying it's not safe to have something that compromises our immune systems and is highly allergenic and hard to digest. And, if you want to drink pasteurized milk, great. Fine. It's a free country. Do that. But if you want to drink raw milk, let's make it as safe as it can be and give you that right as well. And that's what we're all about. We trained back in 2011. We've trained thousands of farmers internationally. We trained 175 farmers in Great Britain alone as the guest of the Food Safety Agency in Great Britain. We did that in 2018. So the bottom line is we are now a threat because we've established standards. We're using modern technologies to measure those standards to make sure we're actually achieving the standards. We validate by testing. And now we're a serious threat to the paradigm that Dr. Bruce German at UC Davis said. Pasteurization, this is his quote, pasteurization is an 18th century solution to an 18th century problem. We could do a whole lot better, unquote. That's a PhD that's more knowledgeable about raw milk than anybody in the world, okay? And he's been a mentor of mine. I go to all their conferences every year, and I'm the only farmer in the room. And the rest of them are all PhD researchers sharing their information about proteomics and lipidomics and everything else you want to know about down the genomic level of what's the infinite number of wonderful things in raw milk and breast milk. I'm the only farmer there, and I bring that information back, and I share it with other farmers, and I train other farmers. And boy, this has really upset Superman, I'll tell you that.
To me, it's almost the centralization versus decentralization. And so almost by definition, raw milk has to be decentralized, because I don't know that it can be done on the centralized scale, right? I think that you have probably done the largest scale that I'm aware of in California, but in creating a food system with raw milk, it has to be decentralized. All of our bureaucracy and laws and everything are geared towards that centralization, which to me has all kinds of negative effects, all kinds of negative, whether it is medicine, food, pharmaceutical, agriculture, you name it. When we do that, it's always a negative overall. So let's go back real quick, because when people come to me regularly for health advice, they are anti-dairy, right? They either don't know or they're anti-dairy. And I've tried to do my very best to explain that what you buy from a grocery store and raw milk are not the same things. They're not even close to the same thing. So how do you articulate that? And then let's go into how can we overcome this centralized food system?
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot to talk about, but let me break it down real easy. Raw milk is the first food of life. Mammalian raw milk is breast milk. When you look at all the benefits of breast milk feeding, it's just huge. And there's no contention about that. The FDA, USDA, World Health Organization, all the doctors, nurses, moms, dad, everybody agrees, breastfeed your baby, because it has all these phenomenal, important nutritional and also biologically active things, which are the functional proteins, which are just, there's thousands of them there, that are destroyed, inactivated, denatured by heat of processing. So how do I express this peace treaty here? How do we get to talk between, pasteurized and raw and kind of bring people back? We have been in a multi-generation, multi-decade indoctrination that sterile foods and highly processed foods and long shelf life is safe and sterilized is better. Well, that's not our natural diet. Our natural diet, to build an immune system which is adaptive and resilient, must have biodiversity, must have the elements found in these unprocessed whole natural foods. not just raw milk, but other foods, all together with raw milk on top of it, gives you that resilient, adaptive immune system. That vaccination you might get for this year's flu was last year's genetic code for the virus, not this year. It's not in anticipation of what's coming at you. It's what already happened. It's not going to happen again. Raw milk builds by natural immunity, and all of it's incredibly bioactive, antiviral. There's 15 different antiviral proteins, functional proteins found in raw milk and breast milk that protect you from the oncoming, the next future virus, the next future flu. There's no sneak attacks from COVID anymore, right? There's no waiting for a vaccine to take care of what already happened. You've got an adaptive, forward-looking immune system that says, I'm prepared for anything. I can adapt to anything because I have the ability to deal with threats coming towards me. That's why you very, very rarely ever hear of kids that drink a lot of raw milk and parents that ever get the flu. I haven't had the flu in 25 years myself. I just don't get the flu ever because I'm adaptive. A virus, a cold, a flu, I don't get it. If I do, it's very mild. It passes me very quickly. So the bottom line is I don't get bedridden, and I'm 63 years old. None of my kids, nobody ever gets the flu. What's that? And we never get the vaccine. So the bottom line is COVID awakened the sleeping giant of the doctors can't help me. Don't come to the hospital. You're on your own. Stay at home, which was what the doctors said. They awakened people, the conscious alert people, and said, hey, wait a minute. What kind of food can I take? What kind of things can I do? What kind of vitamin D3 do I need to take? What do I need to do to not become a victim, not be immunocompromised, to build my immune system? And that's where raw milk really exploded, because raw milk is the most powerful immune system building food on earth by definition, by blueprint. It is the first food of life that builds an immune system when the baby doesn't have one when they're born. So no wonder raw milk's exploded. And the FDA is freaking out. They cannot handle this interesting embodiment of consciousness where people are doing their own reading. They can look up PubMed and see all these studies. So it's really a beautiful thing to see because it connects the farmers to consumers, and it bypasses the consolidated get big or get out industrial thing that happened since 1970s, which is hurting us. It's not helping us. It's hurting farmers, not helping farmers, and certainly not helping consumers either. So this is a revolution. You're watching it as we speak.
So yeah, I think to your point, that is centralization in essence, right? Get big or get out. That's what it is. It's scale, make more efficient. That's the commercial model. So where are you seeing the methods in which the FDA is coming after farmers? Because I've seen Joel talk about this, Salatin talk about this. Sally Fallon's all over it right now. And so everybody seems to be seeing it. So what are you seeing? What are those tactics that are happening? And then you talk about what happened with Amos Miller. They're coming after the small food producers.
Yeah.
So what tactics are they using?
Well, the FDA's tactics are backfiring on them because what they're doing is they've been doing all kinds of attacks for many, many years. But their most recent attack is on the avian flu thing, which is a big, huge nothing burger. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. They even admit to themselves that this is a flu virus, accidentally got into a herd of cows in Texas, and it affected about 10% of the cows in 8,000 cow dairy, where they accidentally ate a bunch of dead waterfowl because it was stuck in their TMR machine where they ground up the feed, and the waterfowl got in there and they're dead and chopped up and put into the feed along with the grain and silage and everything else. And the cows ate their TMR, their total mixed ration, and you can't separate out pieces of bird from the feed, right? So they ate this, and a few of the cows got sick. I totally understand. But they recovered within 2 weeks. They got diarrhea, yellowish, watery diarrhea. They had loss of energy. They had lost their milk production down to about a half a gallon of milk a day. It was yellowish, thick, colostrum-like milk. They separated those cows out of the herd, kept on going. 2 weeks later, guess what? Those cows came back. Everything was normal like normal. So that's what happened that started this whole thing. But then they started sharing cows and buying and selling cows. And now we got 10 or 12 states that have this. And by the way, what really upset the FDA and got them really excited about going after raw milk, using this as a tool, was that there's very high concentrations of avian flu virus in the milk of these cows, in the milk of the cows, in the raw milk of these cows. The reason they really got excited was They found it in all the pasteurized milk because all the milk was combined together, was commingled together between hundreds of different dairies, ones that had it and ones that didn't have it. And it ended up in the same silo tanks, got pasteurized. Now, of course, it's not going to hurt anybody because it got denatured by pasteurization. But here's something I'm going to give you an insight to, which you're the first to hear this nationally. I've told some media people and other about it, but you're the first to really take it to the people. On about May 25th, which just a few weeks ago, May 25th, I got a call from a raw milk producer in a state, not in California, but just east of us, a few hundred miles or 1,000 miles or so, not Texas, that had raw milk that was going to be retail. It was being sold in retail. He's a state-inspected legal raw milk producer in the state he had. He got hit on May 1st with H-pie in his herd, with highly pathogenic avian influenza in his herd. 6 of his cows wouldn't get up. They had runny diarrhea. They had very low production of their milk. It was yellowish, thick milk. He called his vet. He said, what do I do? What's going on? He goes, separate those cows immediately and keep on going. It will pass in 2 weeks. Because he knew that the science was that avian flu is communicated through respiratory mucus. It's a respiratory thing. It is not a gastrointestinal foodborne disease. But the producer said, hey, Mark, I know for sure some of that milk got in the bulk tank and probably 500, 1,000 people drank it, maybe more. I said, now that it's passed, because you're calling me on the 25th, it passed on the 15th of May. He says, I haven't had any complaints at all from nobody. It was delicious. No problem at all. Because I caught most of the cows, but there was some of that avian flu in the milk. I know it. My vet said so. He said it didn't have any effect on anybody. Nobody got sick with the flu. Nobody had sniffles. Nobody had anything. However, 3 workers on other dairies, 3 farm workers that were dealing directly with cows had conjunctivitis because they actually got the cow mucus themselves in their eye. And it did cause a 4-day course of simple conjunctivitis, pink eye, resolved by itself without any further complications. This is a nothing burger. This is a nothing burger. It is not causing human illness. It won't cause human illness. And it's just an excuse for the FDA to bark up a tree, cry wolf about raw milk. So it's very, very interesting to hear this dialogue from the FDA when they themselves admit that they know it's a respiratory illness, not a GI tract foodborne illness. But they're losing, they're losing traction. Our influencers are smart people, millions of followers. You're an influencer that read and get educated and look at their own PubMed studies and look at the Peg-Coleman scientific meta-analysis. The meta-analysis looked at all the science and said, this particular avian flu does not have the genetic traits or properties or ability to make the jump to human, period. It can't do it. It's not part of the strain that would do that. And they know, they can look at this. The H5N1 does not jump to humans to cause flu or cause an illness in humans. The science is clear. That comes from PubMed. That's not my thing. That's from Peg Coleman, who's a USDA food safety researcher. I'm sorry. They're not listening to their own best experts. And it's not fitting their, the way their paycheck works with the big processors. Let's put it that way. It's not the economic comfort zone that they want to be in, where they're losing market share at 5.5 dairies a day being lost in America because of low milk prices. 5.5. We're losing a dairy a week in California, but raw milk's thriving. So what's happened is the FDA has lost the trust, the respect. They've lost their bully pulpit. They've lost their ability to communicate with people because they've told too many mistruths. They've been misleading. They've not been telling the whole truth. They refuse to meet with us, talk with us, understand us, and listen to us and work with us. Instead, all they do is fight with us. So at this point, there was an article that came, all they're doing is just a media barrage. I mean, today there was 3 articles that came out about raw milk cheeses and raw milk don't ever eat from the FDA. 3. But yet they have no authority to do anything at the state level where raw milk is produced. The states have their own thing. California's got a fantastic program for H-pie. Done deal. We've worked with our state vet. We're good to go. But the FDA doesn't have any authority to reach down into the state and do anything. So all they're trying to do is just create this massive bluster, this massive conflagration of information and scaring everybody about it when they should have no fear whatsoever. The science is very clear. The experience is very clear.
I put out we've got a substantial following through the farmers market on social media, and I put something out just trying to gauge how receptive people were to the raw milk topic. And Mark, it was probably 99% extremely pro raw milk, and I was shocked. Now some that were against it were, they kind of hit those kind of talking points we're all, aware of
Sure.
sanitation and disease but to your point on the 18th century problem and solution, I mean, I think that we're past that, right?
Right.
And so I was really, really shocked by that. But I'm very well aware how the meat processing consolidation is, how consolidated meat is, but I'm not with the dairy. So go into that a little bit. What does the national dairy look like in the production?
There's about 9.4 million cows, plus or minus 50,000 cows in America. It's been pretty stable for a few years. But we went from hundreds of thousands of dairies 20 years ago now to 23,000 dairies, losing about 10% or more of those dairies per year. Canada's not losing dairies like that. They have a milk supply program where the dairymen get economic sustainability for their food. The dairymen negotiate the prices with the processors. The processors are not the end all be all. They're not as strong and don't dominate. The dairymen actually have a right to sit and say, this is what we need as a collective organization in Canada. In the United States, we don't have that. There's an old saying, it's always cheaper if you can steal it. And that's exactly what they're doing right now, is they're buying their milk when it should cost the dairymen to break even and make 50 cents a hundredweight. Should be about 25 to 26 bucks a hundredweight at minimum. They're getting $15 to $18 a hundredweight. I think that the highest they had this last month or so is 21, 22 max. But they've been down at $14, $15 a hundredweight for the last year. So we're losing dairymen left and right.
So go into that. Go into the production side. So once it goes from a local dairy and then it goes into these processors and these aggregators, how consolidated is that? How many companies are kind of overseeing that?
Huge. I don't know the exact remaining number of processors, but I do know they're building 25 and 50,000 cow dairies that are directly connected to processors. So that's kind of telling you what's going on here. You no longer have the 500 cow or 300 cow or 200 cow dairy anywhere. Even they're losing more dairies in Wisconsin than you can shake a stick at. It's just crazy. But it's highly consolidated, which makes it harder to negotiate a price point because you have fewer people in control and they run the show, just like the beef deal and the pork deal.
Yeah.
And so you've got his Dean's Foods, you've got, well, they're not even, I think they're being sold now, but you've got DFA, you've got these huge dairy brands. They run the entire show. And you either you get paid their price or you're done. So you're a completely subordinate to the price that's offered. And if you don't like it, see ya, bye. You're out of luck. So no dairyman. In fact, there was big hearings on dairy supply in the United States just a few months ago. Dairymen refused to testify because of the potential loss of their contract with their contract. So it's a mess. It's intentionally that way because I tell you what, the ones that are making money are the processors, not the dairymen. Yeah. They get the milk for dirt cheap, and people are scrambling to get whatever they can. So it's really an ugly structure that we have that's designed the system for the pasteurized milk. And by the way, let's step back a little bit. That dairyman doesn't have to worry about quality in his milk too much. And if he did worry about quality, he's kind of a fool. And the reason is that milk is commingled with all the other crappy milk out there. So why would he, take a lot of time, energy, or money to actually produce a really high quality milk when it's going to get dumped into a milk tank and he's not going to get paid for it? It's going to be exactly the same being processed. So why would he be involved in that kind of an economic thing where he's going to spend all that time and all that money to make really good milk when he's going to get paid for dirt, just like his neighbor? So you got to think about
raw milk's the exact opposite, right? Raw milk's the exact opposite. You're paid based on your quality.
Exactly. And you pay the guys doing the milking 3 or 4 times more than the guy down the street because you're going to prepare that udder. You're going to make sure that everything's super clean. You're going to check to make sure every cow is healthy. You're going to do routine testing. You're going to chill that milk in 2 minutes, not 2.5 hours. The pasteurized milk ordinance allows you to be under 50 degrees in 2.5 hours. We're under 36 degrees in 2 minutes.
Wow.
So it's a different world. Wow. It's a different world, but the FDA refuses to acknowledge it. They refuse to discuss it because what they have to do is they have to accept their standards and they have to look at it and say, yeah, it's filthy as hell, Yeah. And by the way, we don't pay the farmers dirt. And that's a system and it's established to be get bigger, get out. And it's terrible because it's ruining America and the dairy farmers and the food chain around them. Who feeds the dairy farmers? All the alfalfa producers, the grain producers. Right. They're getting hurt too because there's no money to pay them. And the communities are folding up because how do you support a school district that there's no tax base anymore and jobs? It's really, really sad.
It is sad, and it's a parallel problem across all of agriculture, I feel like. So I can see what you're saying with the dairy side is the same thing that I have seen and been personally, a part of through my family in, raising broiler chickens, right? Exactly. Or the pork. And so, I think there's only one really dairy company in Arkansas. So, but on the meat side, you got Cargill, Tyson, is it JBS? You got like 4 of them that control 70-80% of the market. So I'm guessing that dairy is going to be something similar.
It's on its way already to be that way. And if you look at the big picture, 90% of the milk is handled by just a handful of processors. There's some local processors here and there. But the big thing is ultra high temperature processing. So very long shelf life. So you have 60, 90 days of shelf life. So you can get the milk out to everybody. And what's interesting is the price paid for milk right now, our class 1 is less than the milk paid for cheeses. That kind of shows you the cheese milk flip, because cheeses are more popular than pasteurized milk right now because pasteurized milk is so allergenic, hard to digest. People are going to alternative products. And raw milk is literally stepping in to say, we're delicious. We're very probiotic. We're very biologically active and all these great things we talked about. And people are going, I don't care what the price is. I want it. And boy, I tell you what, when a farmer gets paid well and he gets to see his customer coming back with hugs and kisses and they thank him, that's exactly the opposite of the farmer that's sitting out there getting bankrupted and never gets to see anybody. That's number one. One of the reasons why dairy farming is one of the highest suicide rates in America, from economic and social exclusion and just that whole suppression of your value as a human being, versus that raw milk dairyman that has high standards, knows what he's doing, has a consumer relationship that comes in every day and wants more raw milk that's delicious, making his kids not have asthma anymore. Yeah. And gives a big hug with tears in her eye. My God, he'll climb any mountain for that, and he'll feel great, and his kids will feel great because the next generation's got hope. So this is a very big transformation, not only nutritionally and immunologically for consumers, but the farmers can thrive and survive as well. So this is big time, and the FDA is just beyond their wits right now. And I've communicated with them. I'm the big negotiator. I'm the big diplomacy guy, right? I want to talk to the enemy. I don't want to shoot at them. I want to talk. I want to sit down and work it out. I want to build a relationship so I can respect them and they can respect me. I want that. They don't want it. They don't want it. They want me gone, and I don't. So what do you think is our next step? How can I help? How can consumers help? How can we come together with this? Because I sincerely think that it's a huge, huge, huge deal. You're doing it today, Logan. You're doing it today. You teach raw milk, you don't sell it. You don't sell it to anybody. You teach it. When you teach it and explain it, people say, where can I get it to? And you got to make sure that that farmer, when he produces it and serves it to his people, is doing a good job. So training the farmers is super important, and also educating consumers. And that's where influencers come in. That's where people that do their reading, do their homework, and understands the bigger play of what's going on, get a grip on that. I think the most incredibly progressive thing I've done is to build a big market with thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people say, I want that for my family because it's so fantastic. They don't even talk about the FDA. They're irrelevant. They're talking about our brand. And we've got 20 UFC ultimate fighters. I'm not a big fighting guy, but nonetheless, they're loving raw milk. They got on their trunks, it says our brand down in Florida. So, I mean, when you got that going on, you got Danica Patrick, the race car driver, you got David Carr, the football player, you got every other, person that's got 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, a million followers. Paul Saladino, huge. And you know what? People say, FDA, don't waste my time. I'm not interested in hearing those guys. They completely screwed me over 3 years ago, and I'm not interested in going back with them. I'm farmers over pharmacies now.
I love it, my friend. So I just wish it was opened up a little bit more to where more people had access to it and we had the transparency. I think that's what makes maybe that decentralized model a little more difficult, is because if we have a few bad actors, right, a few dairies that aren't doing it right, it hurts the whole, right? So do you have any advice for some of the consumers to make sure that who we're working with is sure enough doing it right?
I would connect to the Raw Milk Institute. We are the guys that do the training, that provides farmer training. And we'll for free, we'll connect to all the farmers that call us, and we will help them to practice the highest standards possible rapidly and get it going on so that they produce raw milk for their customers the best and highest way. I will say we've been contacted by at least 3 states, Minnesota, Louisiana, and Delaware, to change their law and incorporate our standards in the raw milk law so they can have world-class raw milk with on-farm testing.
Fantastic.
On-farm labs. So we are literally in the heat of this thing right now. We're in the tornado, and it's a beautiful thing because I know we got the moms and the truth. They may have the money and the guns, but we got the moms and the truth. And the moms and the truth that are dollar voting and moving the markets in a way, there's no denying what dollar voting is all about. Dollar voting is in capitalism in America is extremely decisive. It says, I don't want you and I want you. And that's what they're saying to us is we want you, we want a lot of you. And people are deciding to have us.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. Well, let's leave us with, you're the biggest advice for just life in general. What you got, Mark?
Build your immune system through unprocessed whole raw milk, but make sure your farmer knows what they're doing. But I tell you what, it's the biggest gift you can give to your family and yourself for health. No question about it.
I love it. Mark, thank you, my friend. And we'll keep just trucking along.
And Season's awesome. Her son Kicker is another one of my sons. It's awesome.
I love
Thanks,
it.
buddy.
She said you used to fly the milk in. I can just see you having a delivery in a plane. So I love that.
I did that several times up in Mammoth Lakes a few years back when they were snowed in. I came in with an airplane and took care of it. So, yeah.
Of course.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.